Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. It's hard to believe that 2020 is almost in the history books, the year that seemed to bring one surprise after another. The news media are filled with retrospectives on this most unusual of years, 2020. They're bringing you stories that got the most airtime. What was it that defined 2020? For some, it was the pandemic. For others, it was the protests against social injustice that gripped many communities around the world. Some will state with great determination that it was the presidential election, combined with the pandemic, that were the defining events of 2020. Sure, all of those things happened. There was economic carnage. There were massive job losses on a scale we've not witnessed in history. If your family lost a loved one, or if you lost someone you know to COVID-19, this year, 2020, will be forever etched in your memory. As you conduct your retrospective on the year, don't look to the news media to interpret the year for you. It was your year, no one else's. The only year that counts was your year. The purpose of conducting a retrospective is for you to learn and grow from it. If you spent the year watching YouTube videos waiting for the pandemic to be over, then chances are you're not listening to this podcast. That's not the culture here, and I suspect not for any of our listeners either. I've discovered something extremely important in life and I want to share it with you. It's a perspective on living that almost has nothing to do with what actually happens. You see, what happens to you, for you, in spite of you, rarely has a lasting impact. What has a lasting impact is the story you tell yourself about what happened. Now, I know some people are going to be outraged by what I'm saying. No doubt someone will have an example of something really horrible that happened which will prove me wrong. But put that aside for a minute and stay with me on this train of thought. I'm not advocating that you invent a delusional story about what happened. I'm not talking about revisionist history. You see, for some people, 2020 was a horrible year. For others, that exact same year was a year of growth. For others, it was a year of isolation. For others, it was a year of learning how to be comfortable being by themselves. For some, 2020 was a year of financial hardship. And for others, the exact same circumstance was a test of resourcefulness. As I conduct my retrospective on 2020, I'm seeing accomplishments that I'm proud of and others that didn't go my way. You see, I was one of the first people in my community to talk publicly about the pandemic. Even before public health officials had made announcements about the pandemic, I was already speaking with fellow real estate investors and letting them know that they needed to prepare for potential supply chain disruptions, for food shortages. For me, the first quarter of 2020 was a test. How long would it take me to prepare to have 16 weeks worth of food and supplies in my house, so if I didn't need to go out for anything, my family would be just fine? That week of preparation, late February, early March, taught me a lot about preparation. It forced me to ask difficult questions like, what would I need in the house if I didn't exit the house for another 3 months? After observing our food consumption this year, I can see some items we bought that we didn't use. We bought canned vegetables that we normally would never have bought, but we bought them just in case we were truly confined to the house, and we exhausted our supply of fresh vegetables and then our supply of frozen vegetables. For many, 2020 was a year of adjustment. They didn't have a routine for working from home. They weren't accustomed to holding daily meetings using video conferencing. For us, 2020 was a year of adjustment, and it was stressful simply because there was a wide gap between the expectations we had going into the year and the reality on the ground. We had to accept the current reality was not going to meet our expectations. We experienced delays on virtually every project. We experienced higher than expected expenses. We experienced drops in revenue in some areas of the business, and we experienced 2 hurricanes only 5 weeks apart. We also experienced new opportunities that were not present at the beginning of the year. It was strange not traveling. I've traveled an average of twice a month for the past 20 years, maybe longer. And last year, we spent 3.5 months in Europe. This year, our only trip was for 2 weeks to the beach in Mexico back in February. We had Zoom meetings for family gatherings. We got to experience moments over Zoom that would have never happened any other way. Our regular monthly real estate meetups went online as well, and while the quality of the relationship building suffered, going online allowed us to bring guests from all over the world that wouldn't have traveled all the way to Ottawa for a 45-minute speech. Our regular masterminds went from being a conference call to a Zoom meeting. That resulted in much better engagement. Our staff meetings went from rambling meetings to much more tightly managed daily Zoom meetings. Conducting a retrospective is a little bit like mining for gold. You've got to sift through a few tons of rock in order to extract a few ounces of gold. The gold that you're looking for here are the lessons that are buried deep within the thousands of memories in 2020. The art is in extracting the gold and letting go of the tons of rock and tailings from from the mining process that will only weigh you down. Those tailings are those feelings of regret, of shame. You see, you did what you did, and you didn't do what you didn't do. You can't change it. You can only learn from it and aim to do better in the future. And as I look forward to 2021, my resolve is to strengthen 3 habits. This year, my sleep has been thrown off, my morning routine is not where I want it to be, and my exercise has suffered. And that's where I'm focusing on improving for 2021. As you think about that, have an awesome, happy new year. Go make some great things happen. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.